honest, out of all of the topics, all of the lectures, everything that we do in here, this is honestly probably my least favorite day. So I will go ahead and admit that to you up front. I don't particularly enjoy campaign finance because one, I'm not smart enough to fix it. Like I mean, just honestly, I'm not smart enough to fix it. We'll talk about like the amount of money in campaigning and things like that now. I mean, I think y'all have figured out I'm kind of a nerd. I think about things intelligently all the time, deeply, because I'm just interested in how things work. I can't, no matter how badly, like I can actually fix most things. I really could, if people would just listen to me, but nobody listens to me. I can't fix this, which probably says a lot about my personality as to why I don't like it, doesn't it? I didn't think about that until right now. Okay, so we are talking about campaigns and elections today. Because obviously you can't talk about elections without talking about campaigning. Alright, so a general overview. Hopefully none of this is coming as a shock to you because I've already registered at least some of you to vote. Right, we have a presidential election that happens once every 4 years. We have congressional elections that are held every 2 years. That is all 435 members of the House of Representatives and 1/3 of the United States Senate. Okay? And the United States Senate rotates, just so you understand. Right? So you have 1/3 of the Senate that's up for election in 2022, a different third in 2024, a different third in 2026, and then back to that first third in 2028. Okay? It's also worked out to where no state has both seats open at the same time. Okay? It's supposed to be. Okay? So no two seats are open at the same time. No two seats are on the same election cycle. It does happen to where they're both open at the same time because somebody dies or retires. Right? That does occur. Okay? Elections. I know why they did this, but I find it comical. Elections are the first Tuesday following the first Monday in November. So what that means is Election Day has to be November 2nd through the 2nd through the 8th. That's 7 days, isn't it? I think so. 2nd through the Okay, the reason, so it's the first Tuesday, unless the first of the month is Tuesday, because the first of the month has a whole bunch of other stuff going on, and we don't want to, like that's when rent's due, and that's when people want their disability checks, and like their unemployment, and government is doing a lot of other things on the first of every month. Okay, so we don't do the first of the month. So the 2nd through the 8th. So it is the first Tuesday following the first Monday, which could be the second Tuesday if the first Monday is November 7th. Yeah, that's how we get to the end. There you go. Okay. So the administration of elections, this is something that maybe if you thought about it would seem sort of intuitive to you, like obvious. But also maybe if you thought about it seems counterintuitive. But elections are actually controlled at the state and local level. Right? Our elections are not nationally done. Okay. Yes, we do have national elections for the president and the House of Representatives on that Tuesday in November. But other than that, everything else is left up to the determinants of the states. That's one of the reasons why coming up here this spring, right, which is why I will do another voter registration drive in January, because you all will have an opportunity to vote for the Republican presidential candidate on March 5th. Right, because in Texas we hold our primary on Super Tuesday, which is the first Tuesday in March, right? But Iowa will have already voted at that point. New Hampshire will have already voted at that point. A couple of other states. And that's because that aspect of voting is controlled or done at the state level, right? So the states are going to establish polling locations. Right, they're going to staff polling locations. They're going to determine the rules for all sorts of things. Okay, so in Texas, for instance, again, because I'm trying to register all of you to vote at some point in time while you're in high school here, you may register to vote 30 days prior to election day, right? You actually, sorry, not may. You have to be registered to vote 30 days prior to election day, okay? That is in Texas. In one of the Dakotas, and I can never remember which one, you can actually show up on election day and register and vote at the same time, okay? So it just depends on where you live as to what the rules are. All right, we have two real types of elections, right? We have a primary election and then we have a general election, okay? So a primary election is the elections that are held to select a party's candidate for a general election. We hold primaries usually in the spring of an even-numbered year in order to determine who the candidates are in November of the even-numbered year. Primary elections are then broken down into two subcategories. Well, really there's three subcategories, right? There's three subcategories. We should probably go through all three of them, and I really need to get the third one on my PowerPoint. Right? First is a closed primary. Okay? A closed primary is a primary system in which you must be a registered member of that party in order to vote in the primary. Right? So in New York in 2016, Donald Trump's children could not vote for Donald Trump in the primary. Okay, because Donald Trump's children were registered Democrats and Donald Trump was running as a Republican, and New York has a closed primary system. Okay, New York also has like ridiculous rules. I think you have to be registered 6 months in advance. Okay, and by the time that Donald Trump became a legitimate candidate, it was too late. The open primary system is actually what we have here in Texas, right? So for those of you that I did register to vote, you didn't have to declare a party. Nobody declares a party in the state of Texas, right? When you go into a polling location on March 5th or whenever the first time it is you vote for a primary or vote in a primary, right? They will simply ask you, do you want a Republican primary ballot or a Democratic primary ballot? You pick, right? In 2024, you will likely pick the Republican ballot, okay? Because there is no Democratic presidential ballot. It's Joe Biden, okay? Right, so for me living in Texas, the first time I got to vote for president in Texas was 2016, right? In the primary of that year, I voted in the Republican primary because Hillary Clinton was the foregone nominee, like that was already known. So why am I going to waste my time voting in the Democratic primary? And then in 2020, I voted in the Democratic primary because the Republicans didn't have a primary because Donald Trump was their candidate, right? So you can actually go back and forth and switch over and over again. Okay. The third type of primary is called the jungle primary. It is not on the PowerPoint, so you need to pay attention. Okay. A jungle primary is what they have in California. Okay. So jungle primary is sort of what it sounds like, right? Like it's a free-for-all. Every candidate that is running is on one ballot. So if you are in California and you are a Republican, you are on the same ballot as all of the Democrats. And what that does in California is it ensures that the top two Democrats go on to the general election because California is all Democrats. Okay? It would not make any sense to have a Democratic primary and a Republican primary because the Republican candidate will not win a statewide election in the state of California, at least not anytime soon. Okay? So, Dianne Feinstein is like 98 years old, and she's finally going to retire from the Senate, right? You know, you realize I'm being hyperbolic. She's not 98. She's probably 88, right? She's going to finally retire from the Senate, which means she is not running for re-election in 2024. So there are a handful of Democrats that have already declared their candidacy. I'm sure some Republicans will throw their hat in the ring just for fun, but the top two Democrats in 2024 will go on to the general election as the candidates for California's open Senate seat, right? The general election there is then who is actually going to win the seat, okay? So the general election is to actually obtain the office. The primary elections, whether it's open, closed, or jungle primary, is really about having the opportunity to run in the general election. Okay? That also means that the parties wield a significant amount of control in the primary process. And now, in the United States, we operate under what's called the winner-take-all system. And what that means is, well, first of all, there's different ways to do this. Okay? We use a winner-take-all system, which is really a plurality system. Okay? So, I think we already talked, did we talk about those two words, majority and plurality? Not everybody all at once now.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yes?
Yes.
We know that majority means greater than 50%, and we know that plurality is the largest of subset. Yes? Okay, so wonderful. And in a majority system, right, in order to win, you have to have you have to have a majority of votes, meaning you have to have more than 50%. So if we just have candidate A, B, C, and D, right, and A gets 50.5% of the vote, and B gets 40, and C gets 29.5, and D gets 10, right? At this point, A has won and we're done. Okay? That is a majority system. In the event that we have these four people and we have a majority system, right? And we have 45.5 here and 45 there. We do not have a winner. Candidate A and candidate B will go into what's called a runoff election. C and D drop out and we're going to vote again. Now you must choose between A and B. This actually gives B a shot, because if they can convince these people to go and vote for them, that does not equal 100. Whatever. I don't do math. Okay? They convince people we're good. Yes? We understand that? Okay? Now, here's what I want you to understand, because we also have what's called a single member district system. Okay? Which then is what really is the winner-take-all system. Okay? So what that means is for the House of Representatives, right? Like that's our common house. There's 435 members, right? We have 435 different districts. Okay? So what that means is if we have 435 districts, and let's just say the average, right? We're going to throw up four parties here: the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, the Green Party, and the Libertarian Party. Okay? Because the Green Party and the Libertarian Party are the closest things we have to legitimate third parties. All right? No third parties are actually legitimate. Okay? So, Republicans, Democrats, Green Party, Libertarian Party. Now, nationally, right? Nationally, the average would probably be 48%, 45%, 5%, 2%. Yes? Okay? In a winner-take-all system, you go to each individual district, and if this were the actual total for each individual district, the Democrats get 100% of the seats. Okay? Because they have won the plurality in each individual district. Okay? This is different from something called proportional representation. Okay? In proportional representation, right, we all vote sort of jointly, and then we have 435 seats, and so you take 435 and you multiply it by 0.45, and whatever number that is, that's how many seats the Republicans get. Right? There's the Democrats. Right? Okay, so 435 times 0.05 is what? Just to put this into perspective, I'm only going to do the one. 22. Okay, this would be 22 seats in the House of Representatives. Do you understand that? These people got 5% of the vote, period, across the entire country, yet the Libertarian Party would get 22 seats, right? Which means that the Green Party would probably get like 8 seats. Right? Now the Democratic Party, I don't know, we're just going to say 205 and 200, whatever. Because that should equal 435, yes?
Yeah.
Okay? In order to get anything accomplished, how many votes you need in Congress? Can y'all do some easy math? No? What's 35 divided by 2? 17 and a half, right? We can't have a half, right? So in order to win, it's got to be 218 to 217, or this has got to be higher, yes? If the United States had proportional representation, could one party dictate all behaviors? Does any one party have 218 seats? No. Okay? So I want you to understand, this is what happens in real life. Okay? And this is what I care most that you get out of today. Okay? You understand, because we've been talking about, we talk about polarization and party polarization, right? Are we really that divided as a people? Okay? Here's the thing. If we really figured it out, I don't know. Give me another couple of animals. Yeah, you ought to know the narwhal is my favorite animal too. 4, 6. Somebody said gorilla, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, and then another like
Cheetah?
dogs, sure, right? Dogs. What? We got gorilla. It's close. Okay. So listen. This is what I want you to understand about the single member district. We're just going to do this in vote totals. Okay, so just not percentages because I can't do math that quickly, but in general vote totals, right? So we're going to say Eagle get 100 vote, the gorillas are going to get 90. I don't know, rats are rats, they're going to get 40. Cats suck too. Sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Cats are mean.
They are.
Parrots are just annoying, right? I love narwhals. Nobody knows what they are though, so they can't win. Everybody loves dogs, right? Right? So look, if that's our vote total, who wins a plurality election? You understand the dog wins, yes? Yes? Okay, so the dog wins. What is the conclusion you can draw about the satisfaction of the people? The people like dogs? Somebody that's got your phone out, since your phone's out, add up all them numbers. Tell me, how many votes were there? So do 150 divided by 805. And we're going to get 18.6%. 18.6% of the people are happy. 81, God, you smile with the math. 81.4% of the people lost. Their candidate of choice didn't win. You understand that? So if we talk about general satisfaction, how happy are we with the election, right? We can say basically that 1/5 of the people are okay with it, and 4/5, 80% of the people are unhappy. Yes?
Yeah.
So here's what happens in a single member district winner-take-all system where you have plurality elections, right? At this point, right, we've got 150 people, okay? Or sorry, we've got 150 votes winning. Somebody like the Parrots realize that they will never win. They're not even remotely close. They're damn near last. So what will the Parrots do?
Why are the parents not the rats?
The rats would too, but rats are rats.
Wait, can you ask them that again?
You understand that with only 45 votes, they're not even close to winning, yes? Okay? They're not close. Okay? But they don't really like dogs. Parrots and dogs, they don't really like each other, right? They're both vying for human attention to be the best pet. Okay? So they're in competition with one another, right? The parrots also realize that the Eagles have a shot at winning, don't they? They're relatively close. Okay? So if the parrots take their 45 votes and go up here and give them to the Eagles, right? Now the Eagles might win. You understand that? Okay? So the parrots dissolve, they go and support the Eagles. Okay? Because they're both birds, they both fly, they have something in common. This group goes away, right? And honestly, the rats would probably go away too, because they're rats and they suck. Right? And so you might end up with 165 here, right? And only 160, because the dogs didn't think they needed to add anybody. Right? They were winners. They were happy. They didn't need to go and make other people happy and try to get their numbers up, because they already won. We have an election cycle. Who wins? The eagle wins, yes? Right? And at that point, as the eagle wins, the cat realizes, well, I don't have a shot now, right? I can't win. Okay? Like, we're at least both domesticated animals. We kind of like dogs, right? Like we like people sometimes. Some cats like people, I guess. Right? They're going to throw their support there. We have another election. Who wins again? Now it goes back to the dogs winning, yes?
Yes.
Okay? So at that point, right, dogs aren't really a predator, okay, but tigers are a predator, okay? They don't like cats, so they're going to go against the cats. They're going to go throw their votes behind the eagle. Another election happens, the eagle wins, yes? Do you see what's eventually going to happen? Right? So eventually, we end up in a situation where we have the dog and the eagle. And these are our two political parties. Right? And the dog gets 51% of the vote, and the eagle gets 49% of the vote. And now, after many, many election cycles, what is the conclusion that we can draw about the happiness of the people? The majority are what?
Happy.
The majority are happy, you would think. Except that's not accurate.
Oh, because they changed it.
Because here's the thing. What percentage of the people actually liked the dog?
18.
That number doesn't change. Right? 18.6 liked the dog. Now we're up to 51%. Okay? So where did the other people come from? Right? Where did that other 32.4% or whatever it is come from? Came from people that are not happy with the dog. They are more unhappy with an eagle. But they're not happy. The reality is this is part of the dysfunction of our electoral system. This is part of the dysfunction of our polarization in our two-party system. Right? Because then what happens, every now and then, you get a third party that comes along, right? And let's actually be like realistic for a minute. In the year 2000, we had the Green Party. And a dude named Ralph Nader popped up and was like, we're all going to drown because the ice caps are going to melt. We're all going to like burn and whatever. Okay? And here's the thing. If you lived in Florida, which is very low lying, right? And you thought that the earth, or the seas were going to rise 2 or 3 feet, right? That would be a huge catastrophic problem. And so Floridians specifically voted for Ralph Nader. Right? And so now, if the Democrats were the dogs, they should have had 50%. They got 48. The Eagle got 49. The same 49 that they did have. And the Green Party siphons off 3. Right? All they did was cost those people their election. has now spent the last 25 years of his life. Al Gore was not a huge environmentalist prior to the 2000 presidential election. Okay, by all accounts, Al Gore was going to be the next president of the United States. And then Ralph Nader siphons off hundreds of thousands of votes in Florida. Al Gore loses Florida by, I believe it was 422 votes. That's it, right? Third most populated state. I don't think it was third at the time. No, it might have. No, it was fourth at the time. I think it was the fourth most populated state at the time. Okay? Fourth most populated state in the United States was decided by 422 votes. Right? So this is what we get. And then, once this happens, what has the Democratic Party been significantly more concerned about? Their issue. Right? And which of our two political parties is more concerned about the Green Movement? Democrats. Right? It costs them an election, so they're going to take that idea and make it a part of what they're doing in order to try to get those people back. Okay? Proportional representation is basically what we would do if there was all 10 of those up here, right? The first time we held an election, that's proportional representation. Okay? The best example I can give you of that is England. Not that this is a comparative government class, and you don't really need to know about England, but that's how England holds their elections, right? When they vote for parliament, they go and vote for a party, not a person. Okay? And so if the Labour Party in England gets 60 seats in parliament, right, the Labour Party has a list of names. They count down 60, they draw a line, those top 60 go off to work. Number 61, sorry. You didn't get a job. Maybe better luck next time. We'll win one more seat. Okay? But it's how you get multiple parties in the English system in Parliament. All right, that brings us to ballots. And a long time ago, parties printed their own ballots. Okay? That's not very conducive. Okay? Now we have one ballot that lists all of the candidates, right? So everything there is the same. Okay? But what happened in the United States is in order to do that, we end up with what we call the Australian ballot, which is a long form ballot. Right? Do I have anybody in here who's actually voted yet? No? So here's the thing. We will hold an election in November of this year. Right? One of the things on the ballot is a LCISD bond issue, right? Whether or not we want to raise $15 million to fix Trailer Stadium. Okay? Even this year, which is an odd numbered year, meaning that there's not a whole lot of things to vote for, your ballot's going to be probably 2 pages. Right? In 2024, your ballot might be 8 or 9 or 10 pages long, which creates a significant amount of voter fatigue. That's actually one of the reasons why voter turnout went down, because we have a whole bunch of people that don't feel comfortable voting for, like, Texas Land Commissioner, right? Or Texas Railroad Commissioner. Like, in Texas, you vote for some jobs that, to me, seem like they would be better off filled by, like, civil service. Right? Meaning people apply to them, like, I'm not elected, right? I applied to work here and I was chosen because I'm qualified, right? So there you go. In this day and age, listen, in this day and age, we have basically computerized systems that we vote on for the most part, right? You're going to go in, you're going to click some buttons on a machine. It's going to print out a Scantron, essentially, right? You go and slide the Scantron through the machine, and that's how your vote is counted, right? There are a whole bunch of people. I mean, we will never, ever go to, like, a true one-line system because it's way too susceptible to interference, right? Somebody could hack that and change your vote, and that would be terrible. but there's no evidence of like the machines that we have having those sorts of problems. Okay, and it's way better than what you see on the left, because what you see on the left is the ballot that was actually used in 2000 in Florida. In fact, I think that is the 2000 ballot. Or is it 20? No, it's 2000. Yeah, because you see Bush, Cheney, and then you see Gore, Lieberman right underneath that, right? Except you see how you got like the arrows and the little punch holes. Dude, that confused the ever-living bejesus out of some old folks. Like, when they went back and audited Florida, there were people who had punched out every single hole but one. Right? Which means, I guess that means they thought that they were like eliminating everybody else. I don't know. Some people just punched out all of them. Which, now I really don't know what you're doing. Okay? Legislative districts. So our districts have boundaries. Okay? We're going to talk about this a couple of times. We'll talk about it again when we get to Congress. Because gerrymandering is a relatively important issue for you to understand in this class, right? But as far as elections go, for the House of Representatives, we reallocate seats in the House of Representatives every 10 years based on U.S. Census data, right? So if you look at my pretty little map up here to the right of the board, right? And somebody looks right here at Texas. Do you see the little number, Zoe? What's it say? +2, right? Well, and I want you to notice there's a plus, because if you go to Michigan, what do you see up there in Michigan? A minus, right? West Virginia has a minus. Montana should have a plus. California has a minus, right? We didn't change the number of seats in the House of Representatives. There's 435. But what we do through redistricting and the census process, right, is we've realized that a whole bunch of people have left California, right? California's population is decreasing. Therefore, California must lose a seat in the House of Republicans, right? House of Representatives, good God, okay? And instead, those seats are going to be reallocated, right? So the seat that California lost really sort of goes to Montana, right? Michigan loses, New York lost, Pennsylvania lost, West Virginia lost. Don't know who else, but what? Colorado gained 1, Texas gained 2, Florida gains 1. I can't tell if there's any others up there. But they do this every 10 years, right? And then what happens, right? So that little +2. Texas now has 40 electoral college votes. That means they have 38 representatives and 2 senators. In 2020, they only had 36 representatives. So now they've got to draw 2 whole new districts. Okay? But obviously the land mass doesn't get any bigger, so they've just got to change where district boundaries are based upon population shifts. Okay? Even those states that did not have a change, right? Take Idaho as a decent example, right? Because there was a belief that Boise is actually one of the faster growing cities in America, right? There was a belief that Idaho might pick up a 3rd one, right? Idaho would probably still have to redistrict because Boise is probably its own district and the rest of the state would be the other, right? So as those numbers change as well, okay, even states that don't gain or lose a seat might have to redistrict based upon changes of the population within the state. All right, now this actually brings us to Baker versus Carr, which is a Supreme Court case that says that the Supreme Court or that federal courts can actually intervene in the drawing of legislative districts, right? Because districts, even though it's a state issue, districts have to draw legislators have to draw districts that are relatively equal in population, okay? And that comes out to a little over 700,000 now, really closer to 750,000. Right, unless you're looking at like Wyoming, which has 1 electoral district and like 500,000 people because nobody lives in Wyoming. All right, this brings us to gerrymandering, which I told you about just a second ago. Gerrymandering is the idea of redrawing political districts for your advantage. Okay, so if you are in charge, you are going to redraw districts to benefit your political party. Okay? This is really one of the best ways of explaining this that I've ever heard. Okay? Is that instead of instead of the people picking their representatives, representatives choose the people they represent. They choose their electors. Right? Because now what you can do is you see on the right that is an actual electoral college district, right? Or a representative district from Chicago. Okay? And that's not even the worst example of gerrymandering that I could find you. Okay? But that right there is one district that basically takes specific demographic neighborhoods, ties them together in order to ensure that we know which way that district is going to vote. Okay? And I want you to understand, make no mistake about it, both political parties engage in this process. If you are in charge, you are going to engage in this process to benefit your political party. Alright? There's two sort of ways to do that. One, you can disperse your own party into multiple districts, right? Okay? Or disperse the other party into multiple districts. Dispersing is called cracking, right? So if there's a roughly equal number, and Ohio's a good, actually North Carolina's a better example, right? North Carolina, so is there a +1 next to North Carolina? Okay. I didn't realize that. North Carolina used to have 13 electoral districts, right? So they used to have 13 congressional districts. Now with that +1, they have 14. Okay, so I don't know what happened in 2022. But I do know that in 2020, right, 2020, the state of North Carolina is voting for the House of Representatives. Okay, North Carolina is what you would call a purple state, meaning sometimes it votes Republican, sometimes it votes Democrat. In the 2020 general election there, you had roughly the same number of votes cast for Democrats as you did Republicans in the statewide in the various races for House of Representatives, right? So, 13 districts. How many did the Democrats win? 3. Even though they got the same number of votes as the Republicans. Okay? How is that accomplished? It is accomplished by packing all of the Democrats into those 3 districts. Okay? So in the state of North Carolina, they basically figure out where all the Democrats live. Because you can figure out where Democrats live based on a wide variety of socioeconomic and demographic data. Right? Because when we talked about all of those things at the beginning of this unit, right, like black people tend to vote Democrat, poor people tend to vote Democrat, evangelical Christians tend to vote Republican. Well, guess what? We have data that shows what percentage of people in what community attend church regularly. Right? And what types of churches they attend. So, legislatures will use all of that information because they don't go to your house individually and be like, excuse me, John, are you a Republican or a Democrat? Oh, you're a Democrat? We're going to put you in this district then. Right? They look at the demographics of the neighborhood or the community and they make those generalizations. And so when they have communities that have a number of the generalizations for a Democratic voting bloc, right? Then in the state of North Carolina, they'll put those together. North Carolina is actually so bad, right, that at one point, Charlotte is like right there where that dot is, right? And Greensboro is just to the right of that 6. Okay? They were in the same district, right? They had a very little narrow strip that connected the 2 of them. Why? Because they took the ghettos of Charlotte, the more impoverished areas, they took the impoverished areas of the Winston-Salem, Greensboro area, and they put them together into one district so that they knew all of the black people in North Carolina would be in one district and they could elect a black representative, and good for them. There's all your Democrats, right? So that electoral district votes Democrat at like an 85% rate. It ain't competitive. And this is what happens over and over and over again. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is extreme as far as Democratic candidates go. She will never lose her seat in the House of Representatives, okay? Because her district is 85% Democrats. The way she won her seat is she beat a different Democrat in the primary. That's the only way you ever get these people out, right? Is by primarying them out. Okay? And the person she primaried out was the number 2 Democrat in the entire House of Representatives, had been in the House for 20 years, and was relatively moderate. right? But the Democrats in the primary didn't want somebody that was moderate. They wanted a hardcore Democrat, which is how she's able to win. Okay? So cracking is splitting them up, right, so that you win a whole bunch of districts by a little bit. Packing is putting them all together, so you just write that district off and you go, hey, we can't win that district, but we gonna win all the rest, right? That's really how North Carolina has 10 Republican districts and 3 Democratic districts, despite having an equal number of votes between the two, right? That's partisan gerrymandering, right there, what I just explained to you, okay? The Supreme Court has actually tried not, I mean, look, they will tell you that some extreme gerrymandering is illegal, right? In fact, they made North Carolina redraw that one district, because at one point the district was as wide as the highway that connects Charlotte and Greensboro, okay? Nobody lived there. Okay, but your districts have to be contiguous, meaning that they cannot have a gap. You can't take these people here and these people here and be like, y'all in the same district without it touching. Okay? The highway connected the two, but obviously nobody lives on a highway. The Supreme Court said you can't do that. They made them redraw it, they redrew it, they still did it, but they took like little communities along the highway and added them in there, so it was like, whatever. Okay? The court has been has gone back and forth about minority majority districts, right? Whether or not you can create minority majority districts intentionally, so that basically all of the constituents, by the way, that's a vocab term you need to know, constituents. Constituents are the people represented by an elected official, right? And whether or not, if all of your constituents are a minority, right? If you had a Cuban district in Miami, Florida, for instance, right? Or a Dominican district in New York City, right? Can you do that and intentionally sort of draw it that way, right? There's positives and negatives to that, honestly, right? On some level, it's good because if you have shared experiences, right? You're going to have somebody that better represents your community. But at the same time, it's also not great because you are limiting the possibility of them participating in other ways. Do you have a question?
I was gonna say, can you define what that word was?
Constituent? You are all Troy Nell's constituents. Troy Nell's represents you. You are all Ted Cruz's constituents, right? None of you are Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's constituents. The reality is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez should not care about what you think. Am I out of time? Oh God, I am. Right? Presidential elections, Iowa and New Hampshire matter the most because they go first. Okay? You need to know that. Iowa caucusing is basically like a participatory way of behaving, whereas a primary is just a vote and you move on in life. The president is elected by the Electoral College. You absolutely need to understand the Electoral College. So I'm running out of time. What I would probably do is I will try to record something over the weekend and add like a part 2 to this so you can at least watch it. But try to use the PowerPoint to at least get through the quiz tonight, guys. But the Electoral College is how the president actually wins their election. It's not the popular vote in the United States. Donald Trump lost the popular vote in 2016 and won the Electoral College. George Bush lost the popular vote in 2020, won the Electoral College. Okay? In the Electoral College, you need 270 votes to become president of the United States. On Tuesday, because we're going to talk about presidential elections, you're going to have a reading on Monday. Tuesday, we're actually going to play around with a website called 270 to Win. And I'm going to show you a possibility, very unlikely, probably a 1% chance that it would happen, but a possibility that you can end up with a 269 to 269 tie. Have a good day.